Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us for today's BU Professional Development webinar, The Future of Finance, Hottest Career Trends for the 2020s. My name is Dan Gardner, and I'm a member of the Career Programs team here in the Office of Alumni Relations. Today's webinar is sponsored by BU Alumni Relations and is offered to our 339,000 alumni all over the globe. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. We aim to do this by providing alumni with access to a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. I know we have alumni joining us today from many faraway places like Dublin, Ireland, New Delhi, India, Shanghai, China, Fort Worth, Texas, Ithaca, New York, Sterling, Virginia, Knoxville, Tennessee, and as always, dozens of Massachusetts alumni from towns like Belmont, Reading, Melrose, Cambridge, and many more. For each and every one of you out there, please know that we really do value your opinion on this and every program that we offer. Now, before I introduce today's speaker, just a couple brief housekeeping notes. As you know by now, this webinar is being hosted on our Zoom online meeting platform. If you experience any trouble with the audio or visual portions of today's presentation, please contact Zoom support. You can see the number there on your screen. It's 1-888-799-9666. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni Association website. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions that you may have, and you're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation. You can do so using the Q&A box. Just hover over at the top or bottom of your screen and select Q&A. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, BU Graduate School of Arts and Sciences alumnus Thierry Guedj. Thierry is a psychologist who coaches executives and professionals on career management and executive leadership. A large proportion of his clients stem from the world of banking, investments, fintech, data science, and technology. Since early 2011, he has served as the in-house psychologist at Brown Brothers Harriman, the largest and oldest private bank in North America. In this role, he advises partnership, its management, and its employees on careers, behavioral health, and leadership excellence. Dr. Guedj is also the founder of BostonJobDoctor, a thriving boutique executive and career coaching practice in the heart of Boston's financial district. Thierry, thank you so much for being here today, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Dan. Very nice introduction, and I welcome all the attendees today, and it's going to be hopefully a very informative presentation. Just as a quick introduction, I'll say that I've not been in finance my whole life. Actually, I was happily working at BU probably about 8 years ago when I got a call from a recruiter at Brown Brothers Harriman who wanted me to have a career change. I was very happily employed at BU, working for the Faculty and Staff Assistance Office. And so I was a little bit intrigued because I knew nothing about the world of finance at that point. And I decided that I would take the call and explore possibilities. And I haven't looked back since. And I've learned a lot about the world of finance in the meantime, which I kind of want to titrate down for you a little bit, what I see as the current trends happening right now and how that might help you leverage your skills to make some good career moves in the future. So here we start. This point, okay. So here we are. I'll move to the next screen. Looks like we may have been. Can you see me? Can you hear me, Dan?
So I can still hear you. It looks like we're stuck on that first slide of yours, the future of finance slide.
Yeah. So let me see what I can do to fix that.
While we are waiting, why don't we go to our first poll question?
Yes, that'd be a great thing to do at this point.
All right, so Thierry has put together a couple of poll questions for the audience, just to get a sense of who's in the room and how you're feeling about your current job, things of that nature. And I will say he has forced you to take a side. So you'll see a series of yes or no questions on the screen. So why don't we go ahead and start with that first question. And it's a simple statement. I'm satisfied with my current job, yes or no? And we encourage all of our attendees to go ahead and cast your vote, and we will share those results in just a moment. All right, it looks like the votes are slowing down, so we can go ahead and share those initial results. And Thierry, you can go ahead and keep working on rebooting that slideshow, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward.
What I see is that the nays have it with 70% of the respondents responding no, which is not that unusual. Many people are experiencing career dissatisfaction. There are a number of reasons for that. But it's good to see that people attending the seminar are now taking a step to make things better for themselves. So I'm still trying to move the slide forward.
And that seemed to do it.
All right. So why are we here? The reason you're here is because obviously you want to know what's going on in the financial services industry, and you may be wondering, what's out there for me? Is it going to be more of the same, or are there things that I could do to improve my lot? Perhaps you're bored with your current job or your current career path. You don't see a future for it. Maybe you want a better paying opportunity. Maybe you're just dissatisfied with your current organization or your current boss. So that's what we're going to talk about. So what I want you to do is help you uncover opportunities and sort of learn to evaluate and leverage your current expertise, because it's one thing to know what you're good at, but it's another to see how that expertise and how that experience is relevant to the new world of finance. Also, I'll talk a little bit about how do you get people to give you good advice about managing your career and what kinds of questions to ask. And I'll talk a little bit about pivoting careers and the type of things that people need to do if they want to have a successful career pivot. And then we'll finish by answering any burning questions that you have about your moving your career forward. So right now, the biggest trends is what's sometimes called in economics creative destruction, right? So you have a lot of jobs either being eliminated, automated, moved to different locations. You have obviously the rise of AI and machine learning, which is starting to do a lot of creative destruction in both good and bad ways, right? There are a lot of new jobs being created, but there are many being eliminated. In the current economic situation, you also see a lot of fees cutting in the financial industry and reduced profitability for a number of organizations and divisions. So What you see also is a lot of new regulatory changes. Every time you get a new administration in Washington, you get a new set of regulations. You also have regulations that are pushed by various lobbies. So you'll see a lot of that going on. We're going to see more massive layoffs and outsourcing to low-cost locales. Many organizations are moving jobs to India, moving jobs to Poland, which seem to be the two top locations right now where jobs are being outsourced. And you're now seeing very tough competition from non-traditional financial services firms. So the bank and the traditional financial services companies are seeing a lot of other firms encroaching on their business. And I think probably one of the biggest trends is the change in consumer demands. People, customers are now taking a little bit more seriously by financial institutions. People want services that are easily accessible, inexpensive, high quality, and that is becoming a huge challenge for most financial services organizations, where they're starting to put a lot of money on getting better consumer response than they have been getting. So first, let's talk a little bit about what's happening with digital transformation. You know, Fidelity has been in the news, State Street has been in the news, many other Boston-based organizations are moving toward digital transformation. Tens of billions of dollars being invested. Mobile pay is one of the big job creators in this environment. You see a huge shift to things like environmental, social governance investing, also known as ESG, particularly the millennium generation wants to make investments that are financially responsible and, you know, obviously also environmentally responsible. So you're seeing a huge shift of investment dollars to investments that are tend to be a bit more ethical and a little bit more environmentally friendly. So anyone who has experience in that field will find a job almost immediately. I know that BlackRock is recruiting big time. State Street Global Advisors is recruiting big time. So any kind of environmental, social investing experience you can get will get you very well-paying jobs very quickly. Another field that's growing exponentially is the field of security, risk, and compliance. More and more organizations are trying to protect themselves from money laundering, cybercrime, insider trading, self-dealing, identity theft. So this field is just exploding right now, and it would be worth taking a look at your skill set to see if any of it would apply to these kinds of new roles that are being created. As I said, you know, in tech, machine learning, artificial intelligence is growing very fast. So we will talk about, you know, the possibility of people going back to school, either to do a certificate or a graduate degree. But this is not going away, and anybody who can get some skills in those areas will be golden in the next probably 20 years. Then you have more trends. We have the blockchain, cryptocurrency. For those of us who are not super tech savvy, blockchain is defined as, you'll see on the bottom of the screen, a system in which a record of transaction made in Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency are maintained across several computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. I work with quite a few people who are involved in that, and they are ecstatic about the Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Obviously, this is a brand new field, so there's going to be a lot of problems initially, especially when the organizations putting them forward don't necessarily have a huge amount of credibility. But as you know, a place like Fidelity has currently over 150 people working in their new Bitcoin cryptocurrency unit. So you can see that the big guys are starting to really focus on it because they want to have a reputable organization running the show as opposed to not so reputable. So they're going to definitely take a leadership role in all that. I mentioned the environmental and social governance, and that's a growing consumer-driven shift. Risk and compliance, I already mentioned. Perhaps we could take 1 minute for our next poll.
Absolutely. And all of our attendees can go ahead and see that poll pop up on their screen. The next question is, again, very simple. I feel valued by my employer. And we'll ask you to pick a side, yes or no, and we'll give folks another couple seconds as the results are trickling in. And this one is a little bit closer. So the last question we had, we saw a 70-30 split with 70% of respondents saying that they weren't satisfied with their current job. And here we'll see that we're pretty close to 50-50.
Wow, that's yeah, definitely much better. Okay, so moving on. So top growing careers, we have a huge demand for app designers and programmers. We have a big demand for big data analysts. Forensic accountants is also in much demand. In alternative and international tax accountant, internet security and fraud experts, and one that you may not necessarily think about because you tend to think about it as more of an insurance business profession, but it's the profession of actuaries, where there's been growing demand, at least for the last decade or even a couple decades, and it's still not abating. So another few top growing career, compliance and risk analysts. We see a huge growth in that. Wealth managers, legal counsel, that's something that people may not think about, but because of the nature of financial services, there's a lot of legal issues that are involved, not just with compliance, but also in terms of voting shares or proxy advisory, and that's a huge need, and there's not that many people qualified to do those jobs. So obviously a law degree would be helpful with these kind of things, but also some people with paralegal backgrounds can get really great jobs in those fields. Controllers, we're starting to see more of a demand of. You have ESG analysts for proxy voting and investing. I know people who've gotten environmental degrees to become analysts on the environmental piece of things. So big corporations, you don't necessarily think of them as being big environmental boosters, but because there's much more focus in the general public of having companies doing good environmental work, that now investors are starting to listen to those voices so that they make sure that big polluters or people who are not treating their employees correctly, or people who are trying to have a much more socially progressive agenda in their companies. You have seen the walkout at Google, for example, where they felt that their employer was not taking their concerns seriously in terms of things like sexual harassment or other issues of privacy. So anything that relates to ESG, environmental, social governance issues are in huge demand. And as I said, there's very few people who are properly trained in it. So anyone with any kind of background in this field is going to be golden for the next couple decades, I would imagine. Another huge demand is for internal auditors and customer experience experts, so UX, which is user experience. People who are product life cycle experts are also in huge demand these days. So what does this all mean for you? It means that every day we have opportunities being created with all the innovation that's going on in the financial industry. That means that if you stay abreast of industry news and you keep track of the trends, you are going to be able to manage your career much more effectively, because you will know what you need to learn, what you need to ditch as potential skills that you're using that may not be around 5 to 10 years from now. And I'm hoping that also it will help you broaden your thinking of what a finance career means. We've seen that many people tend to focus on investments and financial analysis, but there's a lot more to the world of finance than that. And also what I'll encourage you to do is to flip the equation, that you can actually use your finance skills to work outside of the world of finance. I know many successful folks in finance that have moved to tech, that have moved to pharma, that have moved to healthcare, who've moved to academia, even biotech, startups, etc. So actually, one of the last clients I worked with actually switched to the nonprofit sector. So you don't have to feel that because you have a degree in finance, or because all your experience has been in finance, that you need to stay in finance. That it is possible to transition to other industries if you wish to do that. So how do you evaluate, leverage, and boost your skill set? First of all, you have to know yourself, right? You have to ask yourself those questions. What is it that I'm good at? Am I good with people? Am I good with data? Am I good with strategy? Am I good with policy? Am I a good logical thinker, right? All these questions are important because your success is going to be dependent on what you're good at. And if you are in a job where that doesn't play on your strength, that's going to be a big handicap for you. Then you have to ask yourself, what do other people value me for, right? Because sometimes you have an idea of yourself that is actually different from what other people see in you as valuable. So oftentimes it's important to check in with other people, your colleagues, your bosses, people in HR, and ask the question, where do people see me contributing? What do other people see me being good at? And also very important, what do I enjoy doing most day to day, right? Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not going to give your best self. You're not going to give your best contribution. You're just going to go through the motions. So very important to ask yourself, what is it that I really enjoy doing, and play on those strengths. And then you ask yourself, what are the most valuable skills and knowledge that I bring to the table, right? Because it's one thing to have skills, but what is going to be of value to an organization? What is actually contributing to the bottom line? You know, where is it that you're going to make a difference and create value for the organization? And you want to know if your skill set is in demand, because you may have a great set of skills, but if they're all getting moved to other locations or different modalities such as AI, then those skills are not going to help you grow your career forward in the future. So very important question to ask. And then who values those skills? Maybe another industry would have a better use of your skills than I recently worked with an executive who worked for a very, very traditional investment services company, and he was somebody more with a tech background, and he wanted to get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and all that. And his stodgy old organization had really no use for him, so he took a job with a fintech company who absolutely loved him. So that's also important to know that your skills are the right match for the organization that needs them. So why don't we go to the next little poll here?
Absolutely. And folks should now be able to vote in that next poll. You'll see it on your screen. After hearing Thierry go through some of these roles that are growing exponentially, when you think about your own career growth prospects in your current organization, would you say that you have excellent career growth prospects, or maybe not so much? And responses are still rolling in. And you can go ahead and see we're back to that 77-23 split.
Okay.
And is this something that surprises you?
Not so much. What I've seen typically is that people take jobs because of availability rather than because of it's a good match between themselves and the organizations, or between themselves and the boss. And when I help people find employment, I encourage them to look at the long term, not just the get a job and if it doesn't work out, get another job. I encourage people to do very, very good research on their organizations and the people that they're going to be working with and working for. And many times there's not a good match.
And
yeah.
One of your tips was to stay abreast of the industry trends.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you go about doing that? Are there
Sure.
particular
I'm going to talk
publications
about
that you
a little bit further down in the presentation.
Great.
But one thing that I've seen that always shocks me is that very few people, for example, attend trade association meetings and things like that. So I when I evaluate somebody for either executive coaching or career coaching, I always ask them, when was the last time you attended a professional conference? And for the most part, people haven't attended anything, sometimes in 5 years, sometimes in 10 years. And I find that absolutely shocking that professional people don't put themselves in a position of nurturing themselves and growing professionally. What I've seen is people go to college or go to an MBA, and then they think their education is done. And far from that. I mean, this is college, and MBA is just the beginning of an education. You know, it's just a structure that gives you the ability to learn and to grow, but it's not what's going to move your career forward. It's just going to be a good foundation. That's what the education is. Education is a good foundation, but after that, it's all the hard legwork that you can do to meet people, to talk to people, to go to conferences, to continue. I mean, as a psychologist, I'm required to do a good amount of continuing education every year. Most people in finance do not have those requirements, so people just often just cruise and forget that whatever they learned 10 years ago in grad school is no longer relevant or even helpful. Sometimes actually unhelpful. So yeah. So thanks for the question.
Sure.
Yeah. So evaluating, leveraging, and boosting your skill set. So that's actually a very good transition because you want to know what is going to be needed. So retooling and boosting your skill set. So you need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, given the trends in the industry, given where things are going, are there skills that I'm missing? And if so, which ones? Then the next question is, how do I go about getting those skills? Do I need to get a certificate? Do I need to get a graduate degree? Do I need to attend online seminar, webinars? Who knows? Are there quality online training options? A lot of people tell me, well, but I don't have any time. And many training options are available online. I just have a client who just signed up for an online certificate to do project management in finance, and he's got a young daughter, and he couldn't go full time back to school, but he's doing this option online, and it's been working great for him. So it's always possible. Even doing an internship, sometimes an internship or volunteering. The client that I worked with who transitioned from finance to nonprofit, she did a lot of volunteering in a couple of nonprofits downtown. She was working on the weekends, helping, mentoring high school students, and now she has a great job doing that full time. So that I know that for sure that these kind of things work. Does your organization have an internal training program, right? Sometimes you're able to sign up for something even in your own workplace. Talk to HR and ask them, what do they have for employees such as yourself? Can you do some retraining? Very important. And before you take action and start looking for new jobs, I would really encourage you to think hard about these things. How motivated am I for change, right? Do I just want to get a job for the sake of just getting out, or do I really want to do something worthwhile with my next career move? What am I willing to do to achieve my goals? How hard are you willing to work? Are you willing to spend some money for your additional training? What is the likely return on my investment? I always ask that to my clients. Well, okay, you want to go in this new direction, but are there jobs there? And if so, how well do the jobs pay, and how available are those jobs? Are there just a few of them? Are there many of them? So that requires doing a lot of homework. Now, talking a little bit about the biggest obstacles to career transition. Typically, I've seen that they are psychological, maybe because I'm a psychologist, but I've seen a lot of anxiety about starting something new. People get paralyzed sometimes about starting the process because it seems overwhelming or too intense. And then there's the issue of the sunk cost fallacy, right? So I've already invested all this amount of time in my career, learning to be an accountant, and how do I, go from being an accountant to being a consultant? Or how do I go from being a consultant to being an investment professional, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea of the sunk cost fallacy is that you're going to stick with what you have because that's what you spent all your time doing, and then you're just going to stick with it. And typically it's called a fallacy, obviously, because it doesn't work, because the sunk costs keep getting higher and higher and higher until there's no value left, and that can be a huge problem for people's careers. I hear people say, "Oh, it's already too late for me." People will come to me at 45 years old, and they say, "Well, okay, I'm too late for a career change." Or even at 50, people think they're too late for a career change. That's nonsense. That's clearly not true. I've worked with many successful people who've done career transition even into their 60s, and as long as you have something good to contribute, people will hire you. At least that's my experience. People telling me I have no time. Well, obviously time is always hard, but can you imagine yourself doing the same thing you've been doing for the past 10 years and doing it for the next 5, 10, 20 years? Usually that's when people start wanting something different. So how about taking some next steps? Obviously, you got to start small. Doing a career transition is not a walk in the park. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of effort. But you do have to start somewhere. So you have to pick a few achievable goals. Maybe schedule one networking meeting a week. That's usually what I recommend, especially for people who are having trouble getting their feet wet. You got to collect some expert intelligence. So talk to people who are successful in their own careers and ask them how they got there. What they needed to do, and perhaps ask them, how you could get into it as well. And people are usually full of good suggestions when you ask them with an open mind. And here's your question, Dan, about attending professional meetings at least once a year. That can make also a big difference. And then you got to make your career transition a priority. A lot of people come to me and they say, "Well, I just want a new job. I just want a new job." So they have been hopping from job to job. By the time they come to see me, and they tell me that it's not been working. But yet they still want the same thing. They just want a new job. And I tell them point blank, I can't help you just find a new job. A new job is not going to get what you want. If you want to do something that's sustainable, that's long-term, that's going to give you satisfaction, just hopping from job to job is a recipe for disaster, not success. One thing that does work too is to contact a couple reputable recruiters. I mean, recruiters tend to have not the best reputation, but there are some serious people out there who can be of help. So depending on the field that you want to transition into, contacting a couple recruiters can definitely offer some help. And you can hire a coach if you feel that you can't do this on your own, or whether you're feeling lost or you're feeling like you need somebody who's going to give you encouragement or help, that can be a good option as well. And now I've left time for questions, but I think we may have one or two last polls before we do that.
Absolutely. So for folks on the webinar, you can now see the next poll question, whether or not you're looking to explore a new career path in the next year or so. And I would also have been curious to know if that maybe changed. Maybe people were a little bit hesitant, not knowing where to begin. But after hearing some of your tips, hearing about those very concrete next steps that you can take, whether or not people are feeling a little bit more confident in saying that, yeah, I am interested in exploring a new path within the next year. And we'll see 83% actually said yes.
Wow, that's great, and that shows that many people want to do something about their careers, and the hardest part is to get started. And I hope that the presentation offered some helpful tips on how our attendees can get started. And as I mentioned, you don't need to start big. You can start very small by talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends, contacting people on the alumni network. I've been contacted many times on the alumni network, and I've never refused anybody my time. So if you have a sense of a BU alum that you would like to contact, I'll tell you, in my experience, they've been super, super helpful and very generous with their time, and I try to be when alumni come to me. So that's something to do.
I can't thank you enough for plugging the alumni network. That's certainly something we talk a lot about here. Yeah. And for anyone on the webinar who isn't sure where to begin, I mentioned 339,000 alumni around the world. One of the best places to start to access alumni who are ready and willing to help is the Career Advisory Network. And that's over 8,000 alums who have raised their hand and said, yes, I want to be contacted by my fellow alums, by current students, and I'm willing to, many of them have customized their profile. So they say, I'm more than happy to look at your resume, do an informational interview, even host you if you wanted to do a job shadow, something like that. So again, Career Advisory Network, you can find it at bu.edu/alumni/can. And we do have a couple questions here from the audience. One comes from Christine. You mentioned ESG analysts are going to be in high demand over the next couple of decades. Sure. Can you talk a little bit more about what kind of skills that role might require if someone isn't currently doing it, but maybe it piqued their interest and they're interested in switching?
Right. So I mentioned briefly before that somebody with some amount of training in one of the three fields. I know, for example, of a number of organizations in Boston and New York who have people with environmental degrees, which is very helpful with the analysis of the environment policy in organizations. People also have experience, obviously, in quantitative analysis. That's always helpful to be able to quantify how the investments are going to work and what kind of companies to invest in, and whether it's on the active side of things or whether it's on the passive investments. BlackRock has, probably at this point they have 75 people working in proxy voting. So it's the ESG side, but basically voting on the company board of directors, voting on investor proposals, these kinds of things. So that's and it's growing. That's just the proxy voting side. On the investment side, it's even more. So really, the field needs people with not just that particular set of skills, but need people who have an interest in the field. And many organizations are willing to train you because there are so few people with a skill set that they have to spend the time and money to actually train people in doing this. So any kind of financial background is helpful, and you can supplement that based on what you hear from the various organizations about how do you boost your skill set so that you're making yourself a more attractive candidate. And it's going to be different with every organization. The point is that you got to start the conversation with people who are involved in it, and see how your profile might meet the needs of the organization.
And I think your advice on one networking conversation a week, I think that comes in perfectly here. For people who are thinking about making a transition and just interested in learning more about what a certain field or a certain role entails. I find that people love to talk about themselves. So if you reach out, especially if it's an alum, you share that BU connection, and you say, hey, I noticed that you're in this role. I'm thinking about making a transition. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that entails? I think that's really great advice. We've got another question here from Kim. You mentioned contacting a few reputable recruiters, and Kim asks, how do you find a good recruiter fit for you and your needs?
Yeah, that's a tough one because to be honest, I have met probably a dozen over my entire career. A lot of recruiters are mostly interested in making a sale, right? So in a lot of ways, it's a sales job where they have a job to fill, and they have to put a person in that job. And my recommendation is it's all about reputation. You have to talk to people who have worked with a recruiter. The recruiters that I have found to be helpful to my clients, they always come recommended from another client. It's like working with an executive coach or with a career coach. They have to come highly recommended by someone that you know. And that's where I would start the conversation. Also, not again to plug the alumni network, but I know quite a few alumni who are in that field. Not so much external recruiters, but internal recruiters, right? So the difference is, the one that does it for the company from an outside vendor, or there are recruiters that you can use inside companies, which are internal recruiters. I usually find internal recruiters a bit more helpful because they know their company really well, and they can, they can answer a lot of questions. So, many times I'll contact an internal, for example, if somebody wants to, work at Brown Brothers Harriman, the first place I would start with would be to contact one of the recruiters and send them your resume and say, this is my skill set. That's why I'm interested in your company. Would you be willing to take a look at my resume and have a quick phone, 15-minute phone conversation about see if there might be a fit between my skill set and your organization. That's usually a good place to start.
Absolutely. We've got another question here. It comes from Steve. To boost knowledge in artificial intelligence and machine learning for someone who's been in finance for 10 plus years, what certifications or schools would you recommend for AI or machine learning courses?
Well, again, I would say, you have to go to a reputable organization. You can find many, online shops that will offer certificates and things like that. Usually I tell clients, go with a well-known brand, not that it's the only way to go, but if something is offered by, NYU, something is offered, by BU, something is offered by Harvard Extension School, you have some kind of quality control where, they will have people who can answer your questions about the program itself, and, not just about how long it lasts or how much it costs, but they should be able to answer, what kind of people join the program. Do people come with accounting degrees or economics degrees or physics degrees? They're going to be able to tell you how, sort of the exact curriculum and what kind of jobs people end up with once they've gone through the training. They will give you names of people to talk to who have gone through it and who have landed good opportunities. So again, you have to do, your research and really see, how the training program is going to fit your needs and be a program that is good from the point of view of quality and giving people professional opportunities once they complete the program. So that's what I would put my focus on. But 10 years experience in finance is not very long. It's never too late to boost your skill set, to learn something new. So somebody who's 10 years experience, maybe they're 35 years old, or 35 years old is a perfect time to go back to learning some new things and make a real career transition.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, one of our participants actually chimed in as well in the Q&A, mentioning, MIT, Harvard Business School, Oxford, they all have certifications, but Samara also mentions Coursera as a really good place to start, something called AI for Everyone. So maybe if you're not sure if you want to pursue AI and you want to go for a certification, would you recommend some of those free online courses as well?
Absolutely. Anything that can give you exposure, because a lot of people will stay away from those kind of things because they'll tell you, well, I'm not really a math genius, and I almost stayed away from grad school in psychology because it has a very heavy concentration on mathematical methods. A lot of statistics and multivariate stuff, and logistic regression and all such kind of stuff that I would have given me nightmares until I actually got into it and found it actually very interesting and very logical. So I'll tell people, even if you were not a math genius in high school or college, it doesn't mean that you cannot learn these things, especially if you go to a good training program and you're very motivated. You can learn these things if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, and we've got another question here. It's a little bit more technical, but I think it is important given that we're talking about, the future of this industry. So James is asking for your insight. He says, machine learning and AI are currently considered back office functions. Do you think that these skills will become part of the investment decision function? Or do you see these as the next commodity skills that are going to be moving out of the money centers?
They're absolutely moving toward the investment function.
Okay.
And actually very, very fast. I think within, you've heard about already the robo-advisors and such things. And, I have several friends of mine who have absolutely their entire savings invested in robo-advisors. And I don't know if I would do that myself. I still have, my own financial advisor who's doing my investment. But perhaps, 1-2 years from now, I wouldn't mind moving, maybe 25%, 30% of my investments robo-advising. So absolutely, it's moving there, and the jobs in equity research is they are disappearing at the speed of light. General jobs in equity investing are also disappearing fast. So yeah, I would recommend to anybody interested in investing to really look fast and hard at the options for machine learning and AI for these kind of things.
Great, and it's hard to believe we're already coming up on the top of the hour. So if people have additional questions for you, what's the best way for them to reach out directly?
Probably email. I'm going to give a simple email because my official email is a little bit long-winded. But my easy email is BostonJobDoctor in one word, BostonJobDoctor@gmail.com.
All right, that's great. And we'll make sure all of our attendees will receive an email tomorrow with a link to view the recording if there's anything that you missed. And we'll also make sure that that email address is included there if people are interested in following up. And I do want to say, if you're thinking about additional certifications going back to school, certainly think of BU. The Questrom School of Business is really investing in online learning. Questrom Digital, you can get on Google and check out all the offerings that they have for they have short-term courses, longer-term courses, certifications. Certainly Metropolitan College at BU is another great resource. And so as we look to wrap up, Thierry, I just want to thank you again for your time today. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the alumni community, not just offering a webinar like this, but also, when alums and students are reaching out to you through the Career Advisory Network. Thank you so much for being responsive. And I'd certainly encourage anyone with additional questions, reach out to Thierry. He has made himself available, and we are so grateful for your time and your contributions to the alumni community.
Well, wonderful, and thank you to everyone for participating, for all the great questions, and it's been great fun for me. So thank you, Dan, for moderating so aptly.
Absolutely. And my thanks also go out to all of our guests today. Again, thanks to everyone who asked great questions. And I specifically want to thank all those who have donated to BU. In the past, your support makes programs like these possible. And if you're out there and you'd like to make your annual gift to BU, you can do so at any time, bu.edu/give. We have a number of really great webinars still coming up this fall, including Motivating Your Next Move from Just a Job to a Career You'll Love. That's going to take place on November 14th. And I'd encourage you to visit our website, bu.edu/alumni/events, to register for this webinar and to see all of the upcoming opportunities for BU alumni around the world. I'd also encourage you to check out our alumni career interview podcast. It's called Proud to Be You. We've talked to some really great, interesting, and accomplished alumni all around the world, and they're sharing their lessons that they've learned in their careers. So if you're looking for a new podcast, a community companion, Proud to Be You, you can find it anywhere you find your podcasts, and you can also find it on our website at bu.edu/alumni/podcast. And as always, if you or any BU alumni would be interested in presenting a professional development webinar, or if you have a topic you'd like to showcase for the Alumni Association, please feel free to contact me in the Alumni Relations office, or you can reach out to me directly via email at dangard, DANGARD, @bu.edu. Thanks everyone for your time, and I hope you have a great day or a great evening, wherever you may be. Thanks again, Thierry.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.